Like the biblical Hadassah, we are the hidden ones. We stayed quiet, we tried to stay safe. We learned that silence was safer than truth, and we didn't have words for what happened. We thought something was wrong with us. But Hadassah didn't stay hidden forever, and neither will we. I'm Deborah Schaefer, and this is where hidden voices come into the light. Real women, raw stories, and proof that you're not alone. This is your invitation to be seen, to be heard, and to finally exhale. Your story matters, and it might just be for such a time as this. This is the Hadassah Files. Today, I have someone very special with me. She's one of us, a hidden one, and she's brave enough to step into the light and share her story. Before we begin, how would you like to be known today? By your real name, or would you like to be called Hadassah?
I would like to be called Hadassah today.
Okay, and Hadassah is one of the hidden ones. I'm really glad you're here. I would like you to take a deep breath because this is just two friends talking. There's no wrong answer, and there's also no performance required here. All right, Hadassah.
That's good.
Okay. Tell me about you. Not your struggles, Hadassah, just you. What do you love? What lights you up?
I love people. I love people so much. I love laughing. I love running around, dancing around. I love living life fully. I love being present. I love listening to people. I love hearing who they are, and I love sharing myself with people.
Nice. Hadassah, I know that you love God, and that's probably never really actually been the problem. Can you tell me about that? Like, what does your faith mean to you underneath everything, all the complicated things?
Yeah, so my faith really it's such a part of me. Um, and it always has been. It always has been from the beginning. See it as just as much a part of myself as my own name and how I relate to the world. My faith has always been an integral part of my life, in a very personal sense, not just what I did, but how I felt and how I saw myself. And I've just always known God, and He has known me, and I love Him, and I know He loves me.
That's amazing. And when you were little, what did your relationship with God feel like?
My relationship with God when I was little was very open. I could always picture Him being like right above me and just a big, calm smile on His face, very kind, very consistent. Um, I knew that He was always there. I always felt that He was watching out for me, but not in a controlling type of way. I always felt that He was listening and really just enjoying watching me live life, not trying to get me to do anything, not trying to get anything out of me, but just present, very grounding.
That's a really actually beautiful description. It just feels so innocent and simple, right? I love that.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
really do love that. So let's turn towards when things began to feel off. All right. So when did you start noticing that something felt off? That the faith you were being taught didn't quite match the God you sensed in your heart?
Mm. It's hard to pinpoint a specific time or a specific thing that happened. But when I was younger, I had a lot of fear, so many different things. And I think it just became to where I knew that I wasn't sensing God. And I didn't really know to call it that, but I felt disconnected. I felt like the fear that I had wasn't really who I am, but I didn't know how to not be scared. And so I got used to feeling afraid and judgmental and alone and all those things.
And what did you start believing about
And
yourself during that time?
I started to believe that I really wasn't that good of a person, that I didn't have much to offer unless I was making a big show of myself or something and doing something really well, which didn't happen very often. I felt like I wasn't really good at much of anything. And I felt like maybe I had a life that was actually made for the background. Maybe I wasn't that interesting or exciting or good and didn't have that much to offer, which is not what I originally believed. I originally believed that I could live a big, beautiful life and be exactly myself.
So, how did you learn to hide? What did staying safe look like for you in this period?
Staying safe looked like being really hard on the people around me, being very judgmental towards people my age, towards my sibling, and definitely towards myself. I built a lot of walls that kept me in a space of believing that I wasn't really going to do very much in this time on earth and that it would be better to stay safe by not getting attached to people, by just being critical of them and pointing out everything that they were doing wrong.
And during this time, what messages did you receive about who God was and about who you were supposed to be?
I think I got the idea that God needed me to be perfect and he needed me to be bold all the time and to never have fears, and that if I had fears, it was because something was wrong with me and that I needed to just grow out of it. I started to believe that he needed me to fit a certain mold and that the reason I was failing in life or felt like I just wasn't enough was because I just couldn't get it together like other people. I couldn't get past my fear, so therefore I wasn't good enough and I didn't have a place.
So, do you feel like your voice didn't matter?
Yeah, I feel like I wasn't really listened to. As I expressed my doubts and my fears and things, there was never a real solution to be found. And I was left thinking maybe it really was in my head and I really was the problem.
So, what happened when you did ask questions? Or did you? Or did you just learn to
I
stay
just
quiet?
I think a lot of times I would be pretty quiet, and when I would ask questions, it was it was too much for the people around me to handle. And I wouldn't ask them in pretty ways, you know. I when I have a question and I express myself, I'm very frank and I'm very loud and bold about it. And I felt like my presentation was never good enough. I could never be um, mild enough or calm down quite enough. And when I would try that, even if I packaged my questions differently, it was still dismissed.
So, did you feel kind
Sort
of
of like,
invisible, like no one actually saw the real you?
yeah, all the time. I felt like I had this huge fountain of life just bubbling up and over and out of me. And no one even knew it was there. They would just looked at me and feel like they saw me as a puddle on the ground that could grow one day, maybe. But I was already bursting with things to do and to say and just didn't have a place.
So what did you believe that you had to do to be loved? Or even just, like, to be accepted?
I believed that I needed to be perfect, that I couldn't be loved or be accepted until I was always perfect and confident in social situations, or unless my body looked a certain way, or unless my grades were good all the time, or unless I could self motivate myself and be a go getter and not procrastinate ever. I had to be perfect in all of these areas of my life that I was struggling in. I was struggling in school, I was struggling with friendships, I was struggling with my image of myself, how I viewed myself, and I felt as if when I arrive, when I finally can do all of these things well, then I will be worthy to be loved.
So, you love God and you've been hurt.
Yeah.
So, how do you hold both of those things?
I think I hold both of these things by focusing on the truth about who he is and by giving myself grace, by letting him give me grace, really, because it is difficult to hold both. It's difficult to try to understand your own experience when you're constantly looking to what it should be like. So I think the way that I hold the dissonance is by choosing to pay less attention to the expectations of humanity, which feels like betrayal. I was taught that that was betrayal of God, even.
Yeah. Okay. So, let's move into a little bit about how your experience began to shift in your life. So, was there a moment when something did shift or when you realized you couldn't keep going the way you were going?
Yeah, I can think of several times, but I'll tell you about one that comes to mind. I remember being in college and getting up to spend time with God in the morning, and at that time, that meant reading, journaling, that sort of thing. And I felt so much pressure to do it a certain way and so much pressure to talk to God the right way, um, to say the right things, to be honest enough to get a reaction out of him and be honest enough to have some big realization and be able to tell people about it. And I was sitting there in the living room in my dormitory, and it was like 5:30 in the morning, and I was writing to God, and I just wrote like, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to hold myself to these expectations when I can't even connect with you because I'm just thinking about how I should be doing this. And I just remember telling God, I'm not going to do this right now. I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to give myself a break because I believe that you love me no matter what happens and that you are still going to be with me even if I don't do it a certain way. Is that making sense?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes perfect sense, actually. So, were you able to then find a safe place or a safe person where you could finally be honest?
Yeah. Yeah, I found one safe person, and slowly over time I found more. But really nature became a safe place too. Getting away from all of the noise, being alone, I found ways to quiet the chatter in my head and step away, literally step back from the other demands of life to create a space where I was not being told what to do, even by myself.
So, in this experience, what truths started to break through? What did you begin to see differently about God and even about yourself?
I started to realize that God is not waiting for us to perform before He lets us know that we are His and that we're on the right path. And I learned that I could relax and I could take the pressure off of doing everything right all the time. Instead, sort of learn to not be so scared to be myself. I think I learned that God wasn't expecting all of these things from me and that the world was not going to fall apart if I couldn't perform perfectly all the time, which changed my relationship with myself in a lot of ways too, because I started to give myself a lot of grace and a lot of room to explore who I am and things I enjoy and to actually start to live instead of holding back for fear that I would make a mistake.
So, did you have language for what was happening to you, or did that come later?
The language came later. I had just gotten to a point where I felt so anxious and so miserable so much of the time that I was simply not willing to live that way anymore. And it was only later that I was able to find some words for what I was actually experiencing.
And so when you started sharing with the people that were coming into your life that felt safe, what did it feel like to be believed, maybe even for the first time?
It felt very joyous, very joyful, very real, um, to not to not be judged. It felt very free. It felt very empowering. It felt very, I would say, very calm at the same time. Like it felt really good to not be questioned. So good. And to not be thrown back into thinking I needed to be hyper vigilant.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Hadassah, what truth do you hold on to now that you didn't have before?
One thing that I didn't have before is a sense of safety. I lived a lot of my life feeling very unsafe. Unsafe in relationships, unsafe in the physical world, unsafe taking care of myself. And I started to trust God as my safety. And not only that, but start to know that my safety doesn't come from even the external circumstances in my life. My safety is in God. My safety is in working with Him to live my life.
So, I know, Hadassah, that you've been on a healing journey. And I'm just wondering what this has actually looked like for you. Do you feel like it's been messy? Has it been slow? Has it been surprising? You know, what's your journey been like?
Yeah, it's been all of that. It's been very fast at times, very slow at other times. Um, it's been very cohesive. It's also been super messy. Um, it's been all of that.
Was there anything that helped you find words for what happened? Like, when did you start getting language? When did you start understanding clearly and find words for what actually happened to you?
I started understanding and getting some language for it when I started acknowledging what was happening. When I said out loud in plain language how I felt and how I was being responded to someone who recognized it, all of a sudden I had the words. I didn't need an entirely new vocabulary, I would say, even. I just needed to stop spiritualizing how I felt. And not only that, but stop spiritualizing what was happening to me, literally, physically, in my environment. When I said things for how they were and verbalized what I was going through instead of writing it off as, I'm not spiritual enough, I don't have enough faith, I must be a really terrible sinner. When I pulled it from that language out into the real bones of like what was happening, then I could just call it what it was. And when I did that in the presence of people who didn't tell me I was wrong or try to deny what I was experiencing, I found a lot of way to express that even before I knew certain terms or things like that. Yeah.
So, just for a little contrast here, what's been the hardest part of this journey? And then also, what's been the most beautiful part of it?
I think the hardest part has probably been the sacrifices I've had to make along the way. I've had to sacrifice the comfortability of how I used to be understood and how people used to view me, certain people, not everyone. I've had to be okay with just how difficult it felt and confusing at times to be talking about the things that we talk about here. But the most beautiful thing is that I have seen God more clearly, maybe even more clearly than I did when I was young. I see him more consistently as that kind, gentle picture I described earlier. I think of him more in that way than in any other negative way. I also, I love myself. I enjoy who I am and who I've been made to be. I'm not so prone to being ashamed. And that makes life much, much happier, much more bearable, actually enjoyable. Imagine that.
Yeah, imagine that. You know, Hadassah, I've known you for a while, and I've watched this journey, and it's been such a blessing to witness. Like, truly, truly, I feel privileged for having witnessed so much change and blossoming in your personal life. And
That's beautiful.
I just want to ask you, where are you now? Okay. So what does life look like on this side of the journey? I mean, I've watched you grow through years of moving through things and just blossoming into this amazing, confident woman. And I just, can you tell us where you are now and what does life look like on this side of the journey? Not that we ever arrive completely, right? This is a process we're all in,
Right.
right? This is a continued journey. But
Absolutely.
as far as you've gotten on this journey.
Yeah. Which I would say is it's all important, you know. None of us are ever going to totally arrive, but that's kind of been the wrong question to ask in the first place. Like, when am I going to get there, you know? One thing I've learned is that we don't have to worry about that. We don't have to worry about when we're going to get there, wherever there is, because he is here and we are here and it will be all right. So to answer that question, now life is a lot lighter. Life is a lot more open-minded. open-minded in the way that I have more curiosity about the things that people go through instead of simply labeling them and moving on. I have more nuance for how I relate to people that are different than me instead of trying to bring them down the one right way and teach them all of these very specific things. I see people as, I should say, I'm more able to just look at someone and have respect for them instead of automatically seeing all these things that they should change and that they must be doing wrong. And that also means I have a lot more respect for myself and a lot less pressure on myself as I live my life and learn. I find that it's a lot easier to express the love that I have because I'm not holding it back. I'm not working so desperately hard to protect myself from the world or to protect myself from anything, really, all manner of things. I know that God and I will figure it out. And so I can afford to love. I can afford to love people in my life and to love the journey that I'm on. And I've also found a connection to my purpose.
Yeah, that's
And
my next thing here is what what can you do now that you couldn't do before?
that's a good
Yeah,
question.
what can
I
you do
like that
now that you couldn't
question.
do before?
Hmm. What can I do now that I couldn't do before? I can serve people in helpful ways. I can see people for who they are instead of who I think they are or who I think they should be. I can rely more on what they share instead of who I have already decided they are, which means that I can have more deeper, more honest, authentic connections with people. I can respect people better. I can serve people better. I can honor people better than I could before. And that means a lot to someone who loves people and loves connecting and loves living.
Thank you. That's very inspiring. So, when you imagine your future, what do you see?
I see a lot of possibility. Specifically, I see a lot of connection. I see a lot of connection to myself. I see a lot of connection to God, expressed in so many different ways. I see living my life knowing that He's with me no matter what I'm doing or where I am. I see so much potential for serving people in ways that are actually helpful to them and where they are.
Yeah.
I see the world becoming a better place.
So, do you sense there might be a reason you went through what you went through?
Absolutely.
So, Hadassah, is there something stirring in you, a specific calling or a specific purpose that you feel like is starting to emerge from all of this healing that you've been doing and the progress that you've made along this path?
Yeah. Yeah, there is. I feel that I am called to work in spaces like this, that I am called to share my story and walk with other people who are deciding that they also want some of the things that I wanted.
So, why did you say yes to sharing your story today and to sharing yourself in such a vulnerable way here?
I think I said yes to it because I feel better, because my life is better now than it was, and that's a good feeling. That's exciting. That's fulfilling. That's yeah, I chose to share because I've actually found help. And I found help in ways I didn't expect. I didn't find the sort of help where somebody tells you that you're wrong and here's how you can fix yourself. I found just a little bit of help in shifting how I saw God and how I saw myself, and coming back to who I am and who I always have been and who He is. I didn't have to rewrite my whole life and reinvent myself. That's what I had been doing. I've been able to grow and not have to destroy myself.
That's really beautiful.
And
I mean, that is really, really beautiful.
yeah,
So,
it's actually helpful.
yes,
Which
to
is the
so many
thing.
people.
It works.
Right. All right. I have 2 more questions for you to wrap this up and close this off. All right. If there's a woman listening
Yep.
right now who feels exactly like you did, and she's still hidden, maybe still afraid, what would you want her to know?
I want you to know that you don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything necessarily. You don't have to go change yourself. You don't have to hurry through this process. You don't have to push yourself. You just need to be open. And you'll know when it's time to say the truth out loud. And you'll be ready for it.
So, what would you say to her about God specifically, the real God?
I would say that God has a lot that He can reveal to you about Himself, and that you don't need anyone else to do that for you.
We have a direct connection, don't we? Individually.
Yeah.
Right? To the source,
Yes.
to the real source of all power, love, and light.
Yes.
And that's a beautiful thing to really believe and not be afraid of, right?
Yeah.
So, Hadassah, I just want to thank you for being here and for being so brave and for stepping into the light, for stepping into the
Yeah.
light and allowing God to transform your life and for being,
Yeah. Thank you.
and for being willing to share it with the other hidden ones in this world.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the opportunity. It means a lot, and I'm really glad to be doing that.
Before I go today, I want to put one thing in your hands. When I was under the heavy weight of religious trauma, I had no words for what was happening and for how it had shaped my life, every part of it. I wished I'd known how the trauma had shaped my innermost beliefs and was therefore running the show. That's why one of the most important things I've done for you is create a quiz. It will give you language, real language, for what keeps showing up over and over in your life that you may not even know is connected to religious trauma. It will help you see what you actually believe down deep. What's informing your thoughts, your behaviors, your habits, everything. I know it's scary, super scary to look at this stuff, but I promise not to leave you hanging. When you take the quiz, you'll get my starter kit so you can begin healing immediately. Just give it a try. You have nothing to lose, but maybe everything to gain. You can find that quiz at religiostraumaquiz.com. That's religiostraumaquiz.com. Hey friend, if this episode named something you've been feeling but didn't have words for, would you share it with one woman who needs to hear it too? A review on Apple Podcasts also helps more women find their way here. Healing isn't just possible for other people, it's possible for you. This is the Hadassah Files, and you're not alone. I'll see you next time.